So when we're passing tight, when we're passing half guard, when we're trying to pass straight to the mount, okay, so we can start again from the closed guard and find that positioning. Okay, again, defining the fight in our favor as the guard opens, and we end up in any kind of a half guard. What are we looking for? To keep our opponent flat and to keep our hips away from his hip. Okay? So in other words, we have to be elusive. We have to prevent his hip, we have to prevent our opponent from getting underneath us, okay? And we keep them flat by controlling what we can call inside space. That's the space from above the knee to below the elbow, okay? Armpit, and the space where you can think of what a neck brace covers, okay? From chin to chest, ear to shoulder. So those are the two kind of primary spaces we're looking to occupy to keep our opponent flat, basically underhook, head control, or the combination. Could be near side underhook, far side underhook, reverse underhook, head control. Okay? We're trying to keep our opponent flat and not underneath me. So just like if we are on our feet wrestling here, and we'll look at our layers of defense, okay? Our hands, our head, and then our hips, we're going to employ the same idea from the ground, be it this position, passing tight from a butterfly, half butterfly, okay, passing directly to mount, as with a lot of the other techniques we're going to see. So first, if I start to lose an underhook, for example, my opponent starts to get underneath me, okay? I'm going to try to stop my opponent with my hands and re-pummel, okay? Or my opponent goes to make an underhook, and I can stop him with my hands and find the reverse underhook. Okay, my opponent starts to pummel. We stop with our hands. You can stop early with our hands as well. When my opponent starts to find the underhook and it's too late now to use my hands, if I pull up to try to use my hands at this point, I'm just helping him pull to get more underneath me, get more on his side, to find the inside space on myself. So when my hands won't work to push on my opponent, okay, I can use my hands on the mat to scoot, and my head is going to fill that space. So when my head fills that space, now get underneath me. No way. So our second layer of defense here to protect our hips, to keep our opponent flat, is our head. Okay? And we're going to see later we can use this head control like in a little more precise way to actually pass the guard directly. So as my opponent comes in, I feel like he's still getting underneath me. Hips stay back. Head comes in. Okay. Now, from the head, I can always go back to the hands and re-pummel, or later we can use that as a pass in and of itself. But now our opponent beats us. We lost the ability to use our hands. Okay, we lost the ability to pummel underneath our opponent's head and find that inside space with our head. So now we have to use our hip. So what's happening here is he's going to get underneath me, right? He's going to start to get my hip and roll me one side or the other. So we're going to post our hands on the mat, yank our knee forward, and swing our hip over. So that does two things. It brings our opponent back flat, and it reintroduces the inside space. So as we go to this side of as we back step over, now as my opponent tries to follow, we can find an underhook. Okay, if that underhook is closed, we can reverse underhook. And then we always have the option for head control or underhook combined with head control. And if none of these options are available, or we feel like once again our opponent can find our hip, we're going to scoot down, pummel the fist to the floor, essentially establishing an underhook here, and just come back to where we were. Okay. Maybe we end up with our knee free and we can go right into a knee cut pass. But maybe we end up back in half guard, and that's fine. So we're losing with the conventional half guard, hands on the floor. We free our knee going north, swing over, look to reestablish a dominant control that we can pass from. If that's not available, we scoot south, our hand pummels inside, But maybe our opponent isn't trying to come to get underneath us with a conventional half guard. They're trying to get us underneath us with a deep half guard. So one more time, he's pulling himself underneath me. Now my hip is stuck over him, and there's no control from which I can pass. So as we lose can we go back? As we lose instead to a conventional half guard to a deep half guard, we have to get our hip over the mat. So I'm going to redirect his hip, bring my hip to the floor, one more time, reverse underhook, underhook, possibility for head control. If that's not available, we can scoot out, repone, and come back. My opponent comes underneath. Okay, he starts to pull me to the deep half guard. Hip to the floor. Okay, I have the opportunity for an underhook. Underhook, reverse underhook, head control. So if we put this together as a drill, we're always trying to keep our opponent out. Again, we protecting our hips, keeping him flat. We have our hands, we have our head, and when we lose those layers, we have our hip. He finds the deep half guard now, and he pulls himself in. Conventional. Deep. And so on.